Okay, we are on 15.1. We're skipping chapter 14, which is the lymphatic system, which
not important.
It's important. You would die without it.
Okay.
But no.
There he is. I like that ring.
You know where we've been.
BTW, raise your hand if you still need to take a test for me.
Better take the test, man.
Just two, y'all? I hadn't looked at yours yet. These are little bacteria. You know what kind of bacteria those are?
E. coli.
Those are E. coli. They live in your intestine. All right, here's all the parts of the digestive system that we need to know. This is your mouth. Hopefully you know that. Food goes in your mouth, you chew it up with your teeth. There are 3 pairs of salivary glands that squirt saliva onto the food and moisten it. And the salivary glands have an enzyme in their saliva called amylase that helps break starches down. And then you swallow the food. The food goes to the back of the throat. The back of the throat is called the pharynx. The pharynx is the back of the throat. At that point, a couple of things happen. A little flap of tissue here called the epiglottis moves down to block the trachea so that the food doesn't go down the trachea. And the food moves down through the esophagus by a wave-like motion called peristalsis. See that word there, peristalsis? I'm going to go back over this whole thing. This is just a quick overview. We're going to do this step by step. We're going to follow food all the way through until it comes out the anus. So the food goes down through the esophagus, journeys down, and then falls into the stomach. There's the stomach there. It's kind of a J-shaped bag that is very expandable. It can stretch and hold up to a couple liters of food. Or in some people, a lot more than that. Some people have real stretchy stomachs, like the guys that eat those 100 hot dogs in 10 minutes or whatever it is. It's insane.
Did you hear about the world's largest burrito?
No.
Yeah, it was a girl as skinny as me, ate the whole thing.
Really? She's
Yeah.
got a stretchy stomach.
No, she was skinny. She stayed skinny.
But her stomach's stretched.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what it was, I promise.
The food's got to go somewhere. It'll go into the stomach, and the stomach will stretch. In the stomach, there's more enzymes that start to break down the food. Are y'all with me here? And one of those enzymes is called pepsin. The stomach also squirts a bunch of hydrochloric acid onto the food. And that acid helps the enzyme pepsin do its job. But the acid serves another function. It kills anything that's living in the food you eat. And it's not like you're eating living rats or something like that. It's that in a bite of food, there's bacteria all over it. Bacteria, they're little tiny organisms. And they're all over the food you eat.
What about food poisoning?
Well, if the bacteria aren't killed in the stomach and make it past the stomach into the small intestine, which is next, they'll start multiplying in the small intestine, and that's food poisoning.
Are there like regular types of bacteria that usually come with food poisoning that always make it past the stomach?
Yes, there are bacteria that will make it past the stomach more easily than others. Most bacteria that are just floating around, your stomach acid can kill. That's how it evolved. There are some that you can get from other locations that are harder to kill. Question? No? Yeah?
How is the lymph connected to the stomach? Did it show?
Yeah, okay. Let me get to that in just a second. It's part of what goes on in the small intestine. One of the reasons you cook your food is to kill bacteria on it. If you cook your food, that kills all the bacteria that were in or on the food, you see. And so cooking reduces the chance of getting food poisoning.
Why is raw fish more acceptable to eat than like raw meat?
Why Why is raw fish worse than raw beef?
No, why would people eat raw fish
You
more
could eat
than,
raw beef if it was like
I mean, yeah, but like,
They-
it's more common to eat raw fish.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. That's just. I think that's historical. Just it's not much of a reason for it. Fish carry bacteria, and so does beef. We have. If you go eat sushi, there are sushi inspectors that check the fish to make sure it doesn't have any bacteria in it. And so that's kind of high grade. That's why sushi is so expensive. We have food inspectors that check the beef too. And you can eat raw beef. You just order your steak. Very rare.
That's true, but like chicken though, if you eat raw chicken like that.
Chicken has more of, usually has more bacteria in it.
Why?
I think it's the way they prepare the chicken. I think they do it less delicately than they prepare the meat. And if you get bacteria that normally live in the intestines of the animal mixed in with the meat, you have an opportunity for infection and food poisoning. And I think it's the way that I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that. Yeah.
I think the reason why people don't eat raw beef as much is a higher risk. You can get cysts in your brain because
From worms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that has all kinds of stuff in it. But if the food is inspected by the FDA, hopefully that's not in there. But you never know. So the safest thing is to cook your food. Okay, so the food goes past the stomach into the intestine right here, the small intestine, and at that point, as the food enters the small intestine, you have two organs here, the gallbladder, which is the green thing, and the pancreas, which is this feathery looking thing that sits behind the stomach. Both of those squirt enzymes into the food, into the small intestine that will help digest the food. The enzymes are like little tiny workers, and they tear apart the food into smaller and smaller pieces. And the gallbladder squirts out, actually it's not an enzyme, it's a chemical called bile. And the bile is made by the liver. The liver makes bile and squirts the bile into the gallbladder. And the gallbladder stores the bile. And whenever food goes into the small intestine, the gallbladder has muscles around it that squeeze and push the bile into the small intestine. And that helps break down fats. The pancreas here squirts in a lot of enzymes that help break down all sorts of things. Fats, proteins, sugars, starch, carbohydrates, and such. And now the food starts going through the small intestine. There's muscular contractions. Again, it's called peristalsis, that squeeze the food slowly along. And there are the lining of the small intestine is lined with little hairs called villi that have blood vessels in them that absorb the food. And so the small intestine is there for absorption of the digested food. And it's real long. If you stretched it out, it'd be like 25 feet long. It'd be as long as this room. But it's all coiled up there. And after the food leaves the small intestine, there's nothing really left but wastes and water. Stuff that you can't digest, and water. And that stuff goes into the large intestine. This is the large intestine. They call it large because it's wider, not because it's longer. But the large intestine kind of goes up and this way and back down, and it ends in the rectum. And during the passage through the large intestine, the body takes all the water out of the food. Throughout the passageway here, there are cells that add water to the food to make it slippery so it'll move through here okay. But during the large intestine, the water is taken back, and you're just left with the poop in the rectum. We call it feces, if you want to be scientific. Fecal material. That collects in the rectum, and then you poop it out. The whole journey takes about a day, but that depends on what you eat. Some foods go through real fast, and some foods go through real slow. So it depends on what you're eating. large intestine is also full of bacteria. There are bacteria that live in the large intestine, and these are helpful bacteria. They make a couple vitamins for your body. Does anyone know what vitamins? We learned this in biology class. What vitamins are created by the bacteria that live in the large intestine? What's that? Nope. Vitamins B and K. Always remember that because Burger King. BK, Burger King. Burger King gives you diarrhea.
Mr. said that like every year.
BK. I figure that someone would remember it, but no one ever does.
I remember.
Why didn't you say it?
I don't know. You said in biology, AP biology.
You should have said B and K, Mr. Willis. Burger King, remember? And I would have been so happy. Okay, so anyway, that's the whole thing. It's we're going to learn each part. We're going to take time on each section and talk about the specifics of it. But you will definitely have to. There's an ID page, of course, with all this on it.
And that was produced in the pancreas, you said?
That's the pancreas.
Why does diarrhea happen exactly then?
Well, what happens when you get diarrhea is your body is taking in, some of the bacteria have got past the stomach. And so they're starting to multiply in there. And when they do that, they produce a waste product that gets in your blood, and it goes to your brain, and your brain goes, uh-oh, we got a problem in the intestine. And so your brain wants to clear the intestine out. So it tells the peristalsis, it sends signals, it makes the peristalsis speed up real fast. And so instead of the food taking a day to go through, it takes about 5 minutes to go through. And the food is just squeezed along real fast, and none of the water is taken back, and so it all comes out. That's the way you clear out the bottom of the tract. The top of the tract, the first part of the intestine and the stomach contents, are cleared out the other way by throwing up. And so when you get the food poisoning, you throw up and you have diarrhea. And that clears everything out.
Always.
What's that?
Could that be a stomach bug, or is it always food poisoning?
Hey, Francis.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, some sicknesses, you can throw up for other reasons other than food poisoning. Sometimes you just throw up. Sometimes you just have diarrhea. It gets very complicated, and I'm not sure exactly how. You'd have to talk to a gastroenterologist who probably studies that stuff and knows what diseases cause what symptoms. All right. There's the whole thing. We call the whole tube that goes from mouth, there's the tongue. From mouth to anus, the entire tube is called the alimentary canal. Everyone say it after me. Alimentary canal.
Alimentary canal.
That's this whole tube. It's about 30 feet long. And I read a report that said that in the Middle Ages, the barbarians would hang their enemies by their intestines from trees, and that would scare the oncoming marauders away.
Sorry,
Would scare me away. So it's interesting though. That's what it looks like if you were to stretch it all out. Always like that picture. Oh, I forgot to tell you about this little thing that hangs off the large intestine. That's the appendix. That's what's called a vestigial structure. It's what is left from a big pouch that's at least as big as the large intestine, maybe even bigger, that monkeys have for digesting plant material, which is called the cecum. Monkeys can eat leaves, and the leaves go into the cecum and become digested there. But we don't eat leaves, so our cecum has disappeared, and what's left is the appendix. And maybe in another 30, 40 million years of evolution, the appendix will be gone too, but that's what's left of that big cecum. the walls of the alimentary canal. And this is showing the walls of the small intestine. In the walls of the small intestine, you have special cells called goblet cells that squirt out mucus. And the mucus lines the whole system. And you can see there are little, let's go back some. If we look at, here's the whole small intestine here. You can see the wall has folds. And this square means they've cut out that little portion there so you can see it larger. And if you look right there really close, you see there are things sticking out here. They're called villi. And the villi are like little finger-like extensions. And look inside the villi, you see blood vessels. And the green thing is a lymph vessel. That was from the chapter we skipped. But the lymph vessel carries around fats and your white blood cells. And the blood vessels absorb all the nutrients. And if you take one of these villi up close and look at it closely, you can see all the cells that line the villi, and the goblet cells are there, and they squirt mucus out. So the whole length of the intestine is covered with mucus, so that the food will slide along nice and smoothly. On the top here of each cell are a bunch of little tiny extensions there called microvilli. So each villus has millions of microvilli that are for more surface area for absorption.
What does ileum mean? Because that's, like cilia. It's the same kind of thing. It's like
Latin ending, I guess. I'm not sure. Small protrusion or something like that. Yeah, you're right. Cilia, villi. This shows the process of peristalsis. This is how food is pushed along. Imagine trying to move a marble through a garden hose. If you had a garden hose and you stuck a marble in on this end, how would you get it to the other end? You squeeze behind it and move it along, would you? Is that what y'all would do? Y'all would just grab it and shake it probably, or start biting it or something. Not me. I would squeeze along right behind it, and that would move the marble forward. Don't you think that would work? It's exactly how you move food through your intestines. You squeeze behind it, and the food goes forward. And there are special muscles that surround the entire alimentary canal that move the material along. Hey, the Rolling Stones. I thought I had a video of peristalsis. I do. I want to show you that video. Let's see here. Here are my videos. Think I got enough videos?
Use a bit more.
I don't see it. Oh, here we go. Peristalsis. I got great peristalsis videos. Or so I thought. Totally frozen, you know. Oh, here we go.
Y'all have one here or not? When do y'all get spring back?
Next week, I think.
No, they
Better.
won't. They'll look December. I'll be.
New logos, new year, new logos, that's what I'm saying.
I'll get prepared.
Sometimes if you do it again.
They look cool, but they look,
So, we can keep that.
I'm not pretty sure. I don't want to dab on them. Yeah, they look cool, but they're not okay, you're on.
Really bad about it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, but I feel.
We could use.
No, we can pay for that.
We could get it. We could get it.
Yeah, I have to. So funny.
Yeah, we can get it washed out.
Does she actually think that all the friends should?
I'm good with that.
We should go.
I heard you about that.
I wonder if the new guy from.
What's up there? Did you get light? Is it red?
Yes,
Dude, we need to get so serious about the house that has like,
Sorry.
we get it, that has like the night. Has our pictures on it.
that picture you put on Your presence is requested downstairs. You're hungry.
Yeah, you should put the legend section. There's the legend.
So funny. I love it.
Almost flat.
It's not water, then I'm going.
Yay!
Digestion begins as food is chewed and mixed with salivary enzymes that digest starch. Food then passes through the esophagus to the stomach. Food is propelled through the digestive system by waves of muscular contraction called peristalsis.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't that worth the wait? There's more.
No,
Peristalsis is the involuntary rhythmic contraction that moves contents along the length of a tubular organ. In this case, the tubular organ is the esophagus, a muscular tube leading from the pharynx to the stomach. The esophagus is collapsed until a mass of chewed food, called a bolus, has been swallowed. The walls of the esophagus contain the circular and longitudinal muscles used in peristalsis. Contraction and relaxation of adjacent circular and longitudinal muscles along the tube creates a peristaltic wave that squeezes the bolus downward. The bolus in the esophagus is pushed along by this peristaltic action until it reaches the stomach.
If peristalsis is strong enough, could you theoretically swallow standing on your head?
Yes, you can do that. That is a real thing.
You can, actually. It is strong enough.
have you done it for us?
I've never done it. Always eat upright.
Digestion begins as
We already did that.
When we swallow, the tongue pushes the food back into the throat, or pharynx. The pharynx leads to two passages, one to the stomach and the other to the lungs. When we swallow, a valve momentarily closes the opening to the lungs, so that food must go to the esophagus. Occasionally, if we talk or laugh while eating, food does go down the wrong passage, blocking the flow of air to the lungs. If the passage is not cleared through coughing or other means, we choke. Food passes from the oral cavity to the stomach through the esophagus, pushed quickly along by wave-like contractions of muscle. This kind of muscular action is called peristalsis. The food passes through another valve to enter the stomach, where it is stored temporarily.
What they do, if they think you have a problem, they'll give you some radioactive dye, or some X-ray dye, in a drink, and you drink it, and it shows up on an X-ray. It blocks the X-rays, you see. So then they put you in the X-ray, and they go drink it, and then they can see if something's wrong in there. If the thing's not, the little flap's not closing correctly or whatever, they can see that. So they don't have to, they can kind of see what's going on in there without actually looking. Isn't that cool? Let's talk about the mouth and the teeth real quick. And then I have a little treat for you.
This is pretty much the worst video ever made. Tuna! Are you kidding me?
Okay, so this is your mouth. You have, you know how many teeth? Does anyone know?
32.
32, very good. 32 teeth, and a lot of times you get the back teeth pulled. They come in later. They're called wisdom teeth. And sometimes you just don't have enough room in your mouth for all the teeth. And it would be less stress on the rest of the teeth if you pulled out those back teeth. And so a lot of people get their wisdom teeth removed. I did. It's very painful. The lip is here. The space between the lip and the gums is called the vestibule. And the little attachment of your tongue to the bottom of your mouth is called the frenulum. These are interesting words you probably didn't know. There's a little flap of tissue that hangs down in the back. That's what vibrates when you snore. That's called the uvula. The purpose of the uvula is when you swallow, it goes upward and blocks the hole that leads from your nasal cavity to your throat. And so the food, with the uvula there, the food won't go up into your nose. Sometimes, if somebody tells you a joke or something, you start laughing, and the uvula vibrates, and the food's in your mouth, and then it goes up into your nose.
Ugh.
My buddy Mitch, this is Dietrich Brock's husband, he could take a piece of spaghetti and snake it down his nose and have it come out of his mouth, and then pull it back and forth. He was a huge hit at the lunch table. Everybody loved that trick. Yeah, it was disgusting. That's why we liked it. Ask Dietrich about that next time she's here. Miss Brock, I should call. She may not know. Anyway, the tonsils are back here. Tonsils are a collection of lymphatic tissue. Last chapter, the chapter we skipped, we studied the lymph system, which helps clean your body of disease organisms. And that's what the tonsils are there for, to kill disease organisms. When you eat food, there's all kinds of bacteria and stuff in your mouth, and those need to be dealt with. And the tonsils have a bunch of white blood cells and a way of taking in those bacteria and killing them very quickly. So the tonsils keep your mouth clean. Now, how many here have had their tonsils removed? A lot. Wow, that's a lot. I think that's more than any class I've ever had. Sometimes the tonsils will get infected, and the bacteria kind of overwhelms the white blood cells, and when the tonsils get infected, they start expanding with bacteria, and that could potentially kill you. And so at that point, they just cut the tonsils out. And you don't, now your mouth won't be as clean. There'll be more bacteria in your mouth, but it's better than dying from the tonsil infection. So you probably stand a little higher chance of getting sick throughout your life without your tonsils.
I think it's more for airways, though, isn't it? More for airway reasons, because your air passage is blocked.
Did they take your tonsils out because your airway was blocked?
No, I'm just saying, I have my city.
I don't know about the airways thing. Maybe so. Here is looking from the side.
Whoa.
Again, like I said, the nasal cavity is communicates with or is attached to the oral cavity. See, there's a space there. And so stuff can go this way and come back this way. Or when you swallow some food and then you start laughing, it can come out your nose. If you're breathing hard enough, air is coming up this way because you're laughing. The air's got to get out. Well, there's food in the way, it'll push the food right out. The milk comes out your nose. So the teeth in there, now go back to the teeth. There are 4 different types of teeth. The teeth in the front, I think I have a different thing for this. Here's the teeth in the front. So there's primary teeth, and there's secondary teeth. Those are baby's teeth. So this is the skull of a child here. And those will come down, and the primary teeth will fall out. The baby teeth here will fall out, and the secondary teeth, those are the adult teeth, will come in.
Does that bone grow back over time? Well, I mean, once the secondary teeth are replaced?
Yeah, the bone will grow there. That's correct. That's right. And here are the types of teeth. The molars in the back, premolars or bicuspids. They're called bicuspids because they have 2 cusps. They have 2 like edges to two things sticking up out of them. Molars have 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4 bumps on them. And bicuspids have 2 bumps. 1, 2. You can feel the 2 bumps with your tongue on your bicuspids pretty easily, right there on the side. You feel them? Feel with your tongue, Sam. Feel your bicuspids. Are you doing it?
Do it, Sam. Do it. Come on, Sam.
Sam, let's go.
The canines are the cuspids. They only have 1 cusp. That's the sharp tooth. In dogs or lions, they're a lot longer and sharper. They're for sticking in meat and hanging on to it while you shake it around and tear it. And we only do that to some extent. So our canines are a lot smaller than, say, a dog's canine. And then the incisors in the front are kind of sharp. Usually you see them. The incisors are real big in animals that eat a lot of plants because you have to snip off the leaves and stuff with your incisors. So the incisors, or for like a beaver, you know, that cuts wood with his. Or a what?
Or a stegosaurus.
Okay. Do they eat? Yeah, they eat plants. Hold on just
Like a Jurassic Park.
second. Here you can see a tooth. The tooth, the part of the tooth that sticks above the gum line is called the crown. Everything below the gum line is the root. Enamel is the hardest substance in the body that covers the tooth. And then underneath that you have the dentin, that's softer. And there's the root canal right there. Sometimes you get, often you get infections of the gums. The gums are called the gingiva. If you've ever heard of gingivitis, it's a gum disease where bacteria that you eat, because you don't brush your teeth, the bacteria from your food, they're real small. Even in this blown up picture, they'd be barely able to see them. They can slide down in the gum, start eating up the gum and eating up the tooth. And the gums will swell up. That's gingivitis if you have big swollen red gums. And the bacteria start eating away at the gums and they're eating away at the tooth. And if they eat all the way into the middle here, it'll hurt real bad because there's a bunch of nerves in there. And so once they've eaten all that way, there's a big hole where the bacteria have eaten away, and the doctor calls that a cavity. A cavity is a big hole or a space. And what you have to do is you have to go in there, you have to clean out the area of all the bacteria. You spray a bunch of bacteria killer on them, and then you fill the hole in with a filling, is what they call it. In my days, they used to use mercury, and it's real dark stuff. And nowadays, they use it like a clear plastic so you can't see it as well. But in old people like me, you look at our back teeth, there's a bunch of little black dots, mercury filled in. Or some people use silver, gold, diamonds. Some rappers use diamonds.
It's poisonous.
It is poisonous in its liquid and gaseous substance, but it'll stay in there as a solid.
Sorry.
So there's the 32 teeth.
What was your accidentally like swallow or digest?
I don't think it would hurt you. I think it goes right through you. your cavity, maybe your filling breaks up. I have a treat for you today.
Video.
Some of y'all have seen it, and so you'll be like, Mr. Willis, we already saw it. But some of you are in for a treat. It's the man with no stomach.
God, the man with no stomach. Some of us live to eat. We all eat to live.
Mr. Will?
For 3 years, Jonas Scott couldn't swallow a single bite of food, and it's a wonder that he's still alive.
Mr. Willis.
But thanks to one brilliant surgeon, Jonas is able to enjoy a meal just like anyone else.
Mr. Willis.
With one bizarre difference. His small intestine is attached directly to his throat. And in this exclusive home video, you're actually watching a mouthful of sandwich pass through his system.
Awesome.